This is The Rewind with David Nuno on TexAgs.com. Wrong camera. Doesn't matter. It's still The Rewind. We'll keep it going because, on YouTube, you can do whatever you want and be an unprofessional broadcaster, and you get a lot of likes and comments for it. Welcome to the show. Today on the program, look, there's a negative point of view and there's a positive point of view. I sometimes try to be in the middle. There's some people who are overly positive. Some people are overly negative. It's somewhere in the middle, guys, and that's what we talked about here on the show. There were some things I took out of that loss to Alabama that I enjoyed. Some things I wish that were different, like the last play, and not capitalizing on those 4 turnovers as much as I think we should have, being Texas A&M. That's all right, though. We talked about that on the show. We broke it down during the Go Hour, and also Billy joined us. The future is bright with all those young players contributing and being really good. Tom Hart joined us here from the SEC Network, gave us his perspective on the Aggies, and we did talk Connor Wegman. When is his time? When is it coming? We talked about, why am I yelling? Doesn't matter. It's TexAgs Rewind.
I'm going to say this. Here it is. Dr. Hauser has told me, Olin, you got to settle down, your blood pressure and all this.
The real Dr. Hauser?
Yeah, that's
Doogie Hauser?
Not Doogie. Kai.
Okay.
He's my doctor, and he's a big Texagger and all this. And so we whenever I go see him, which is more often than I should lately, he likes to talk A&M sports, all right? But he said, "Oh man, you're going to have to watch this, with your blood pressure and all these things." And I start reliving it. My blood pressure gets up. Jimbo Fisher. I'm one of those guys that want to see some changes in the offense, but I still think he's the coach.
Sure.
But he demands so much from his players. He's going to have to start demanding more from himself in terms of organization, because A&M wastes way too many timeouts on stupid crap that if you don't have to call a timeout on defense in the second half, and if you don't have to call a timeout because you've let the play clock get so low that you have timeouts there at the end, which could have saved you time. And speaking of time, SEC officials once again, on the pass interference call and the apparent interception, the guy took a knee. There's 6 seconds left on the clock. Alabama, I don't know. Somehow there's 3 seconds on the clock when A&M gets to run one play. 6 seconds, you can run 2.
Well,
now maybe, and I'm sure Jimbo would absolutely disagree with this, but just maybe, if you're not having to worry about what play you're going to call next, you notice that you just got hosed out of 3 seconds, and you're raising hell with the officials, and you get those 3 seconds back.
Yep.
Okay. So, all right, blood pressures need to calm down. Let it stay.
Well, I might bring back that blood pressure because I want to go over the last play of the game, which before we play, I have my angle of it that we're going to show here in a moment. Before I get into it, I didn't like the play call. I didn't like it because I would rather see A-Chain involved in the last play, either as a decoy or with the ball.
Preach. Right? Amen, brother.
But the play itself could have worked. It was too many ifs have to happen correctly. Yes, the execution, the ball's got to be thrown perfect, the timing. There's a lot of ifs with it. But let's take a look at it because there was aggravated assault on that play.
It was. But then you're asking SEC officials to make 2 PI calls at Alabama.
So, bear hug. Bear hug, bear hug. Sorry, that's a bear hug.
To me, it's all to do with the offense. The defense was bad for a half against Mississippi State, and I won't say, well, it's because because they got tired. They gave up a 16-play drive in the second possession of the game. That was it, though. The defense has been solid. Do they give up yards a lot? And Bama was gashing them for a while. They produced 4 turnovers and gave up 24 points to Alabama at Bryant-Denny Stadium. I mean, I get the backup quarterback I think they would have had a similar game against Bryce Young, but in a different way. And maybe Bama moves it up and down enough to score 30. But if they would have sat there and, Bryce doesn't run, Milroe's running, hurt them, set them up for something, I just think Bama wouldn't have turned the ball over as much, and maybe A&M as a result. Because of the offense, maybe the Aggies score 10 points instead of 20. I think it could have been something like that. But, man, the defense has been fine. We'll nitpick it, and we need to see it get better, but they've been fine, and they've been playing a ton of young players, and that side of the ball has been decimated. On Saturday, we're talking about like they came one play away. They came 2 yards away from beating Bama. I love the rivalry and what it's become with the Aggies and Crimson Tide. They were 2 yards away, and I know Bama didn't have Bryce Young, but Bama had Will Anderson. They had Jahmyr Gibbs. They had the rest of their damn team. There's a couple things I saw there, Nuno. I saw a team compete their asses off. I saw a quarterback play his bet, and I know he made the interception that y'all spent 20 minutes talking about. I know, and it was a big play, and I agree. They should have. I like going for the points, but when you got there to third down, I think that's when you recognize it and you say, okay.
Let's get into the half.
I wanted to go for that field goal. It ain't going to happen. Okay, so let's just run it. I 1,000% agree. But also Haynes got to take that sack there or actually throw it away. But Haynes played the best game he's played, and there haven't been many good ones yet, unfortunately. But he played his best game in terms of like guts, making clutch plays, completing touchdown passes in the red zone. I know he missed the last one. He hit 2 before that. Took a beating, kept getting up and competing. He turned it over once, but that was once against a really outstanding defense.
Best defense he's faced.
Best defense he's faced. Biggest stage he's played on outside of Kyle, and probably the biggest stage, period, because look who his starts have come against. Biggest stage he's ever played on and played his best game. I thought we saw, certain players step up in a big way that we've been waiting to see, like guys like Fadil Diggs. We saw all those freshmen, David. If we look back and go, that was the day that freshman class came of age. That might be that moment. It's perfect timing before a bye week. That might be that moment where you go, okay, a lot of these guys, they're not freshmen anymore. Certainly they weren't walking off the field at Bryant-Denny. So I saw a ton to like as it projects. I agreed with Olin, what he said, though. Is that a Jekyll and Hyde A&M thing, or is that truly a turning point moment for this football team? We say, okay, that's the team we thought we'd see. And yes, they need to get better on offense, but I'll also say this. They went in there. There were times during that game when A&M was playing without 60% of their starting offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, or 60% of their line was different. You had a guy start at left tackle for the first time in his career against Will Anderson. And 31 and 15, by the way, 31 and 15 are as good as there is in the country. They're as good as anybody in college football. You had a left tackle starting for the first time. You had a true freshman at left guard for a lot of the game. You had a center playing left guard for the other parts of the game in Wyckoff. And then when Bryce went down, a few plays there. Then those snaps in the fourth quarter, you had 60% of your offensive line looking different than it's looked for weeks.
I understand the point about Evan Stewart. In my mind, as much as people hate goal line fades, giving him a chance with his size and stature, giving him a chance to go up, in my opinion, would have been a better chance to give him to win a one-on-one.
Or get a PI.
Even though help was on the inside, it being what it is. But, Billy, let me ask you this. The national editorials right now after this game are Jimbo Fisher has to give up play calling. Jimbo Fisher has to hire someone who will be a primary play caller to run the offense. And I just think, from my perspective, and correct me if I'm wrong, that is so far-fetched that Jimbo would be willing to give it up or that it would improve the program in any ways. I'm not saying that the offense can't be modernized. I think that is a fair criticism of where A&M has been and where they are today. But in my opinion, just to compare it to what's happened in the SEC in the past, Gus Malzahn was forced to give up play calling. And what happened? His program kept going down. He got that job because he's a great play caller. Jimbo is in this position because he knows offense and because he's a good play caller. Can they modernize? Absolutely. And maybe that's something they should look into doing. Do you think it's a fair perspective to have to say A&M won't improve until Jimbo gives up play calling?
Yes and no. I think what you're saying is my big debate has been. I'm convinced Jimbo's going to hire a new OC. And I don't know if he'll even give up play calling. And people that think the A&M boosters are going to come in and say they're nowhere near that, because I think everyone's going to let Jimbo make that decision. And I think he's going to make. I think they're going to let him because everybody knows he's going to anyway. I think he recognizes that the offense has got to improve. My biggest question, Tom, is I get what you're saying, and I've said this. It's what Jimbo knows. He won a national title with it. He OC'd for a national title with it. He OC'd an undefeated season with it. It's what he knows. But I think in my opinion, he should give it up because of the entire operation. I see things like the timeout situation I mentioned, not calling the timeout at the end of the Arkansas game and letting them burn off an extra minute or 40 seconds for no reason there if that field goal goes in. It's things like not noticing having someone in his ear to say, hey, they ran off extra 4 seconds. You need to challenge that. You need to get on, the officials need to change that. It's things like that. It's, I could go on and on and on where I think he gets lost in the weeds of the next play call.
I understand that. To me, though, yes, that's his strength. We all understand that. To me, what happens in those situations or why they arise is because you haven't entrusted your staff to have voices, to literal voices in your headset. But hey, go talk to the white hat. They just ran off extra 3 seconds for no reason. You've got to be willing to trust the rest of your staff and listen to that. And great coaches do it. I mean, great coaches are in control and in command, yet take those voices in because you can't. It's not just one person. It's got to be a collaborative effect when you're coaching on game day, and that trust happens during the course of the week when you're putting together game plans, when you're allowing other voices. And some of the most stubborn coaches, and I see it in all sports, are ones that refuse to hear any other voices during practice, during meetings, or at any other times. And that's when you learn to trust the rest of your staff.
And
for sure.
Got to be a blowout situation either way, or do you think they'd find ways to work them in?
Man, if there's a blowout situation and you're on the wrong side of it in Columbia, then there's some real problems, and I think you just go all in and say, okay, here's what you can get excited about because there ain't anything this year. It's a dangerous game, man. South Carolina is. I will talk about that in a second. That is a dangerous football game. To me, I'm going to state it right now. If A&M goes and wins in Columbia, and I don't think they're that good, they got Beamer dancing and talking crap to Mark Stoops. They beat Kentucky. They're having to buy themselves. They're going to come in. That place is going to be rocking. Their next two after that are like Missouri and Vandy. They're sitting there going, if we beat A&M, we'll be 7-2. I'm just telling you, that is a hornet's nest they're going to walk into. A&M still should win that football game, but it's going to be tough. If they get past that one, I think this football team wins out. I'm just saying it now. If they beat South Carolina, I think they knock off Ole Miss. It might be an undefeated Ole Miss. It'll be a massive win for Jimbo and the Aggies. And then I think they win out from there. Auburn will have a new coach. Hell, they might have a new one. Did they have the press conference yesterday? That was right now. They might have a new one today. There's Auburn, and then you get LSU, and you get Florida at home. I think if they win at South Carolina, they win out. I don't know who's calling the shots at quarterback. I just think it happens. As far as how it looks, I just think, hell yeah, Haynes should start. I think that performance, you see, like I said, if he can build off of it. But I think you go into that one, and your goal should be, get Wigman meaningful series and just pre-plan it. And then if it's the third series of the first quarter and, A&M had done nothing for two drives and this freshman comes in and leads you to a touchdown on the third drive, then you ride with that a little bit. It gives you the opportunity to do it. But I think more realistically, you hope that Haynes goes out and leads them to a couple scores. And we finally see that hot start. And you still bring him in because that was the plan. And you let him get a couple, maybe a series in each half against the Gamecocks on the road in an environment. And then you've kind of broken that seal. And it's there for you to do again the next week at Ole Miss. And if things go a certain way against a better Ole Miss defense in a bigger game, all of a sudden at home, you might see more of it. So I think that's the way you do it. Because I think it's very important that you see where this can go with Haynes, with the way he played down the shore, what he showed last on Saturday. And I know there was a lot of things you go, God, you should have done this or that, but you got to see if you can get a real spark and something kind of magical in a first-year guy. And that's a lot to put on him. And that's why I think you have to be careful how you do it. And you just kind of just open the door for that possibility. Because if you don't open the door for it, then you'll never know and you'll never see it. To be perfectly honest with you, I think keeping 15 in the program is the number. And I'm only saying that because this is today's college football world we live in. I don't think there's anything more important right now than that. And there's a trickle-down effect there. There's a trickle-down effect, guys like, probably Stewart and Marshall. And, it's a big deal that you have a quarterback in Wegman that everybody thinks is going to be really good. And I agree with them. I think it's important to handle it right while also Haynes is your starter and you give him every opportunity to start winning games for this team. And it starts with South Carolina. I mean, I think the goal should be at this point, Texas A&M needs to win out. They need to win out. And it's not going to be easy, but that to me is the goal. And these guys that came through yesterday felt that way. They felt like we see what it takes now. We need to win every game from here on out. And I think if they play like they did on Saturday, they're going to win every game. I just don't know, it won't be easy, but if they have that kind of heart and determination and resiliency, and I do think we're seeing some modest improvement offensively, and the defense, I think, has a chance to really take off here. You got McKinley back. That was big. You could be getting Tumishe and Andre White back before too long. You'll have Chappelle back for sure. I think the defense has a chance to and we saw so much growth on Saturday from some of these young guys. I think they have a chance to really make a pretty massive jump for that second half of the season.
So I want from really loud over there, Kay, which her mic is not on, but I want her to tell everybody what you're supposed to do when you watch a YouTube video. Say it. Did anybody hear that? That too. If you heard her, let me know. If you didn't hear it, tell me how unprofessional of a broadcaster it was to do that. That's because I had a guy text the show who got mad that there was one of our owners who's on the show on Mondays and Fridays had his cell phone on the table and it was vibrating. It bothered him. He probably doesn't watch on YouTube. That's just my opinion. If he does, hey. All right, guys, thanks for watching.